Hello everyone and welcome to 2022. And for my first video of 2022, it is time to put a close to 2021. Unfortunately, this isn't the last video I'm going to make talking about 2021 games. I just realized after I said that. But this is my top six. My favorite 6 games that I played this year. Ranking them was tough, and it was originally a top 10, but there were so many games that I was like so close together on that I think I should just make their own video for the rest of the list, which might be clickbaity or whatever, but I put some cool stuff and I want to talk about it because some of the stuff I never even get to talk about on my show because it just doesn't translate well to playing a game and talking about it. Something more narrative is required. However, these are my top 6 games of the year. I'm going to set the stage briefly before we start. I do not own a PS5 and did not play any of the PS5 exclusives that were big this year. I'm not saying that they weren't good. I just haven't played them. Deathloop being the one that I was kind of interested in, but not interested enough to drop the money on Steam copy, because that'd be the way I'd play it. Returnal, I think, was the one that looked cooler to me and maybe fun to play, because I'm not great at roguelite, whatever you want to call it. But the premise of having one in 3D and all this cool stuff with really cool particle effects and that kind of appeals to me. So while I'm interested in Returnal, I'm going to hope for a PC version next year sometime. Maybe I'll take a look at it then. But otherwise, yeah. This is my top 6 games of 2021. Let's get into it. Start it up. Number 6 belongs to Resident Evil Village, a sequel to one of my favorite Resident Evil games, 7, and a decent sequel with all things considered, with weak ties back to the original games, but they tried and it's okay. The atmosphere and the graphics are fantastic. The locations and story points, amazing and memorable. However, if it was all well and good, then it wouldn't be here at number 6. Resident Evil Village falls short for me in a few ways. Its subpar DRM implementation that plagued the PC version for over half a year. And my other issue involves the gameplay and how it's headed back towards the more action Resident Evil games, 4, 5, and 6. To be honest, in my opinion, Resident Evil was on a downward spiral with Resident Evil 5, and 6 kind of doubled down on it and made it maybe worse. So seeing the merchant and the upgrades make a return here have me a little concerned for Resident Evil 9. But overall, I like Resident Evil Village, and I feel like my love for the series makes me so critical that I want to point out flaws when they show up, even if they're very, very small. The footage you've been watching is from the Mercenaries mode. Not my favorite version of the mode, but it's pretty good. I'm still wondering what happened to Reverse though, a PvP-oriented game that was supposed to be attached to Resident Evil Village, but at time of filming has still not come out, on PC at least. Steam said it should have been available for December, but I haven't heard hide nor hair of it. Oh well. But I feel like Resident Evil Village is still a fantastic game, totally worth playing, even with my nitpicky gripes with it. Also, hats off to the animation team. This chicken death is amazing. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. This was a massive surprise for me. This game had such a poor first showing. I think it was in a state of play or something. They didn't have the chatter, they didn't have much. It just felt hollow. But wow, this game came together to be fantastic. And yes, it's not perfect or would have been at the top of the list, but I don't think its shortcomings detract from the overall package. Hence its place here near the start of the list, but still in the top 6, which is good for me, especially for a game that I didn't even want to play until people told me it was good. So let's talk about the Guardians for a moment, because this is going to be maybe a polarizing fact for people because they don't look like the actors you know and love from the films. But once you get to know them or you listen to them talk for a bit and the way they bounce off each other and the conversations and how they flow, you start to understand that these are the characters you know and love, be it from a slightly different Marvel universe. And that's a point that might confuse some people if and when they find Gamora's assassin rank in one of the levels. Peter starts talking to Gamora about her relationship with Thanos and other things. And she reveals why she defected from Thanos' side to help everyone, and how she got her title as the most deadly woman in the galaxy. And if you never read a comic book ever in your life, you're going to be confused maybe when you find out that the reason Thanos tried to destroy half the universe was to impress Death. But I'm getting sidetracked. These characters are fantastic, and the banter from team member to team member helps the missions flow. Sadly, sometimes if you move a little too fast or you're just walking along at a fair clip, it'll cut the chatter short. And sometimes I just stood still to hear the conversation so it didn't happen because it was that good. Now, the soundtrack is also top-notch, but it's something that I can't play for you because licensed music, and you'll notice the lovely streamer mode on at the top of the screen. That is a thing the game does. Now, there is... my biggest gripe with the game is its controls. And there's a reason why I don't like the combat controls in this game. But that's because of other games that came out this year that are higher on this list. Let's just say that the controls were fiddly, and I had a hard time getting the Guardians to do what I wanted to when I needed them to do it. It was not an intuitive experience. But I do need to reiterate how good the story is here. This game made me feel a lot of emotions. Happy, sad, laughing my head off. Not a lot of games make me laugh, to be honest. There's a rare few games that can pull that off. But Guardians of the Galaxy managed it, so here it is. Oh, never forget, Cosmo is best boy.
I'd like to see you fix it next time. Come on, 2 down, 2 to go.
That day when the
Number 4, The Medium. This game is a fantastic mix of old and new ideas, with great ray-traced visuals, fantastic music, and topped with a great story that kept me on the edge of my seat for its 8-hour runtime.
dress him up for his last journey.
That I did in a single sitting. Don't judge me.
Simple.
Very few games have that pull on me though, that make me want to see what will happen next. Now, I'm not sure if Blooper Team will revisit this creepy set of worlds, even with new characters. I would love to play it if they do though, and I think this is the closest we will ever get to a new Silent Hill game. The atmosphere of the twin worlds, living over top of each other, even just talking with the spirits, listening to the fantastic voice acting, and the quality writing. The ending slightly detracted from the overall package for me. But regardless, if you like thriller games with a firm foot in the supernatural, I think you could make a far worse choice than to pick up The Medium. At time of filming, it is still available on Game Pass for Series consoles, PC, Cloud, and recently the PS5.
Are you crying, my child?
It's fine, Jack.
Now, you didn't happen to see my notebook, did you, darling? My memory's a bit fuzzy. So much for aging gracefully, eh?
Number 3, Scarlet Nexus. A brand new IP, a fantastic game with a rather involved story, awesome characters, and even cooler power. The combat system in Scarlet Nexus feels so good. The way you can just crush enemies with objects, turn invisible, slow down time, duplicate, and the way you can combine powers of your team to dispatch enemy in flashy and over-the-top ways. You just have to play it to understand. Now, granted, this game does have a pretty slow start, and the upgrade system can be a little bit frustrating. But bear with it, because the game gets so good. Now, the party system with the powers and activations of things are quick and responsive and feel excellent with great feedback. Now, you'll see character faces pop across the screen when I perform or activate an ability. You can actually turn that off, but I like it. It was nice. The surreal monsters and the solid performance and the really fun cosmetics that you can unlock in this game to dress up your party are some of the highlights and fantastical things that Scarlet Nexus does so well. If I need to point out where it falls short, it starts with the heavy exposition-filled dialogue, side events that don't match the tone of the main plot. To be honest though, it didn't detract from me because I'm used to the weird pace of niche Japanese games, but it was a detracting fact for others. However, there was clearly so much love here. A super strong showing from the team on their first new IP and a successful series here that I hope will move onward. Now, the game might have flowed a little better if the active protagonist switched back and forth, just like the anime does. But to me, that's a minor complaint. This game is otherwise fantastic. With so many rules and the world building done, I feel like the sequel can come out swinging and take the top spot, provided it doesn't have to compete with another dark horse like this year's #1. #2, because we have to get here before we get to #1. Tales of Arise. I just need to say briefly that Tales of Arise and Scarlet Nexus are basically neck and neck and could have been the same game. This could have been the top 5 and I could have chinced out and made these two #2, but I'm gonna go with my gut and say that Tales of Arise is slightly better than Scarlet Nexus, but that's okay. Tales of Arise is quite the game. And this is the first game I need to point out as the first game I've ever played in the Tales of series. I remember seeing people play Vesperia back in the day on the 360, but I never sat down to play it myself. And I might do that. Might actually go and play it at some point, but there's so much going on in world of gaming and so much time for other things that might not happen, unfortunately. But I need to be honest, watching these characters grow, going through dark side plots and hilarious side events was a treat. It really was. And I'm gonna be honest, there's cliches and tropes all over the place, but watching these characters grow and build up and learn to put aside their differences. It has a kind of similar subplot to Scarlet Nexus about treating people as equal, which is kind of interesting and was not unheard of when you find out that the main character of Tales of Arise, Iron Kama, or Alphen, as you find out later, is a slave. This game was so enjoyable and it didn't feel padded, which I really appreciated. This game is not an open world, but I think it suits it better. Open worlds and JRPGs tend to just add padding and things I don't like, but the big areas felt open enough to me that I was intrigued. And I would like to thank my Twitter mutuals for their secondhand hype. Honestly, these guys rock. And I wouldn't have played this game if it wasn't for them. But it's time to get to #1 after this one. And #1, a game that surprised even me with how much I ended up liking it. Looking back at my top games that I've done before in these videos, and the lists that I did before I was recording these videos, I never thought a platformer like this would have hit the top until 2021. But Psychonauts really is a pleasant surprise and a great return to form for Tim Schafer's studio, Double Fine.
Hey, where'd you go?
I've had very little history with the series, and even with Double Fine themselves, but I've seen them underperform, miss deadlines, and try very hard to fund their interesting and ambitious games. I think Psychonauts 2 is a fantastic mix of super mature themes, great comedy, stunning visuals. Some will say the quirky humor from the original game is lost, but I still like this new and fantastic game. From the controls to the powers to the accessibility options, it's almost a complete package. The only thing missing is localization options for Asian countries. I hope that's something that can get patched up in the future so more people can play this. The other thing that annoys me is this game does not have a physical release. I'm hoping that a limited run games version will come out because I definitely want a copy of this for my shelf. Psychonauts 2 sucked me in a way that any great game will, and it didn't want to let me go. You know, the kind of games that cause problems in your life because you have to know what happens next? They're literally the best kind of games. Thankfully, Psychonauts 2 was short enough that I could binge it over 2 days. I love the quirky design of all the characters and the mines you visit, from the hospital casino you see here to the opening cubicle level that quickly degenerates into teeth. I feel the love that every mine was crafted with. But these cartoony visuals show so much of the human mind and the issues that every person you visit. This game may look childish, but looks are deceiving, and even Raz makes comments about how he's trying hard to understand what has happened, and he'll have to figure it out when he's not 11. I think you can't go wrong with a game this interesting, but be warned, this game looks all kid-friendly from the outside, but appearances are deceiving, in the case of Psychonauts 2. But that's it for me. Feel free to put your favorite games in the comments below. I'd love to see them. Until next time, matane!
Pass the baton.